Yes. Good evening. I can see all of you are here. Nimeona Lusigi yako pale. So we are fully covered. Now I wanted to finalize my executive appointments because we have had the first phase of the appointments, which was done last year. But this year, we've been having almost 50% of my cabinet. And after a lot of consultation with key stakeholders, I now want to unveil a full list of my executive. These are men and women that have been given an opportunity to execute our mandate, save for one position that we are still consulting. So there is one more CEC that we'll be unveiling next week. So I'll start with the Ministry of Trade, Industrialization and Tourism, and the CEC was been nominated for appointment, subject to approval by the County Assembly, is Mr. Godfrey Owori. So Owori becomes the CEC for Trade, Industrialization, but of course his appointment will be approved by the County Assembly. On the side of CECs, we have not had any changes. The Chief Officer, we have not had any changes. The Chief Officer for Trade remains Faith Gitira, who is a substantive Chief Officer, and then substantive Chief Officer for Industrialization and Tourism remains Saxon Kweyu. In the Office of the Governor, the County Secretary and Head of Public Service will still be Dr. Lawrence Omuhaka, who will continue with his duties as it were. His deputy will remain Samson Otieno. Chief Officer, Service Delivery and Risk Management is Vitalis Masahwe. Chief Officer, Resource Mobilization is Dr. Barak Otieno. Chief of Staff, we now have a new Chief of Staff. It's called Dennis Elia Wekesa. Advisor Strategy, Said Khazavuli. Advisor Political Affairs, Kasim Muere. Advisor Gender, Leah Ghasandi. Advisor Youth, Emmanuel Makoha. The Ministry of Finance, the CEC who has been nominated for vetting is Benjamin Andama. His approval will be approved by the Assembly. The Chief Officer for Finance and Budget is Dr. June Majuma. The Acting Chief Officer ICT is Dr. June Majuma. Acting Chief Officer E-Government and Communication remains Vitalis Masahwe. And Acting Chief Officer Economic Planning is Samson Otieno. Roads, Energy and Public Works, the substantive CEC is Architect Patrick Kundu. The Acting Chief Officer for Roads and Energy, Engineer Sweta. Substantive Chief Officer for Public Works is Pascal Were. The next ministry is Lands, Housing, Urban Areas and Fiscal Planning. Here we have an acting CEC, who is Architect Patrick Kundu. We don't have a substantive CEC for the moment. So Kundu will still continue to act in that ministry. The Chief Officer for Urban Development and Housing is Adan Shakir, and Shakir will also act as Chief Officer for Land Survey and Fiscal Planning. The next ministry is Public Service and County Administration. The substantive CEC is Dr. Boniface Okoth. The substantive Chief Officer for Public Service is Prisco Tipa, and Acting Chief Officer Administration is Doreen Amwoga. So Doreen Amwoga will be acting in that ministry, in the Department of Administration. Number 7 is Education, Science and Technology. The CEC who has been nominated for vetting by the Assembly is Dr. Bernard Lumosi Amwai. The substantive Chief Officer for Education, Science and Technology is Doreen Amwoga. The next is the Ministry for Water, Environment, Natural Resource and Climate Change. The substantive CEC is Penina Mkavane. The substantive Chief Officer for Water and Climate Change is Maria Mwere. Substantive Chief Officer, Environment, Natural Resources is Bill Silingi. Department of Health, rather Ministry of Health Services, the CEC has been nominated for vetting by the Assembly is CPA Livingston Imbai. The substantive Chief Officer for Medical Services is Dr. David Alila, and the Acting Chief Officer Public Health is Rose Mohanda. Department of Ministry for Social Services, Youth, Sports, Gender, Culture and Library Services. The CEC has been nominated for appointment subject to approval is Mrs. Jacqueline Kakai Masicha. The Acting Chief Officer for Social Services, Culture and Gender is Christine Kimungui Oside. The Acting Chief Officer for Youth, Sports and Labor Services is Saxon Kweyu. And lastly, the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives. The substantive CEC is Moffat Mandela. The substantive Chief Officer for Agriculture is Emmanuel Kariuki. Substantive Chief Officer for Livestock and Fisheries, we have Jessica Weku Wesonga, and the Acting Chief Officer for Cooperatives is Bill Silingi. So following these appointments, the following 5 CECs, we are going to submit their CVs for approval and vetting by the Assembly. That is Godfrey Award for Trade, Industrialization and Tourism, Benjamin Andama for Finance, Economic Planning, ICT and E-Government and Communication. Dr. Bernard Lumosi Amwai will be vetted for Education, Science and Technology. Livingston Imbai will be vetted for Health Services, and Jacqueline Kakai Masicha will be vetted as the CEC for Social Services, Youth, Sports, Gender, and Library Services. I think that is what I wanted to communicate to you, because I know this matter has been outstanding. And for those who are in acting capacity for chief officers, we are aware that that is a mandate that is given to the County Public Service Board. So once the board has been fully constituted, we are going to advertise for the positions of chief officers that are vacant as per my list that I've read. Others, I want to thank you, and I wish the staff to support these new appointments, because we don't have a lot of time. We now have 2.5 years to deliver our mandate, and these are men and women that have given an opportunity for them to deliver. It is actually a privilege for them, and I know they are capable of delivering, subject to the support that you people, members of the Fourth Estate, and all the staff of the County of Kakamega are going to give them. With those few remarks, I want to thank you and wish you a good evening. Asanteni sana.